Hey y'all, Red Panda here, and today we're here for an emergency meeting. You see, I had planned to walk you through a very cultured selection of my favorite old Japanese movies today, but I was having some writer's block, and instead of facing it head-on,
What the fuck is this?
I chose to engage in some good old escapism and watch some new anime. As I scrolled through the list of seasonal anime, my eyes were graced with this title and this description, and I go, I think I'll like it.
I did not fucking like it.
I did not like it so much that I felt compelled to make a video about it. Yeah, that's fun, right?
もはや笑顔も余裕もなくなった。
Let's get this over with. Intro. Before we start, here's the obligatory synopsis, because for once, I'd rather you listen to my rundown of it than watch the actual thing. Trust me, your brain cells will thank you. This is the story of Nasa, a boy whose parents clearly hated him because they gave him a kira-kira name. Watch Rachel and Jun's video for more stupid names Japanese parents torture their kids with. Anyway, Nasa is an everyday genius with high hopes for the future, but God tries to save us all by trying to get him run over by a truck. Unfortunately, Nasa escapes the sweet embrace of death because he's saved by a girl. He's absolutely transfixed with her, guess that's why he thought it'd be a big brain move to run into the middle of the street, rises from the dead, I mean the accident scene, and asks her out. But, surprise surprise, she'll only go out with him if he marries her. So, being 15 and thus an idiot, he says sure thing and eventually dies from his wounds. Sadly, no. He wakes up and drops out of school so he can live on his own. 3 years later, the girl who saved him shows up on his doorstep and asks him to marry her, and they actually do it. And then, more episodes happen. It's supposed to be a story about marital bliss, perhaps, if marital bliss were seen through the eyes of a 30-year-old basement dweller. But anyway, I give Tonikawa an official rating of bad out of 10. This does not spark joy. I am not an angry reviewer, especially because there's plenty of those on this site, but I think anyone who talks about some kind of media will one day encounter something that drives them off a cliff with a tank full of gas and a trunk full of explosives. I guess I found that special something in my life. Hooray! I don't think I've ever really wanted to talk about a series that I had such a distaste for. Is it sad to say that I've dropped quite a few series? No, it isn't, because why the hell should I waste my time watching something I know I don't like and I know won't be getting any better? Slow starts are one thing, train wrecks can be pretty amusing, and shows that are outright bad I can just drop and forget in a few days. But then you have these series where I have no idea where people are coming up with their opinions. So why has Tonikawa sparked such a massive raging fire in my brain? First of all, when I go onto my anime list, at the time of this video, I see it has a rating of 7.98 out of 10.
Actually, it's now at 8.02 as of the 9th of December 2020.
Now let me show you a short list of anime that have a lower score than this show. Off to a great start for sure, because I have several questions, and the first few start with, were you all smoking crack and chugging down whiskey with PCP? Because I sure as hell want that too, because that might bring a little bit of happiness to my young adult life. So many of these reviews are trying to tell me how cute the main couple is and how their romance is the best of the best. The usual congratulatory shit. And I can't help but ask myself, why? Seriously people, I don't get it. I really don't. Why is this such a praised series? Because I don't see anything that tells me this is some masterpiece. And don't tell me it's a thing that's fixed in the manga either, because after a quick perusal of the manga, I still had to hold my vomit bag close to my chest and my smelling salts near. This is a problem that lies at the very core of this whole thing. Part 1. This show doesn't have the taste or any chance to sound couple in I'll throw this show a bone and start this section and probably every other by saying a few good things about it. I like that this series shows how the marriage itself isn't the hard part. It's really just signing a document. There's no massive celebration for this act, no confetti or cheering family members. It's only, here's the paper, here's the pen, now frick off. The whole idea of making marriage into this grandiose event where you have to put yourself into debt, in my eyes, is dumb. That's not what keeps a couple together. Okay, good stuff's over. The bad. Going back to this section's title, this show skips the chase alright because there never was one to begin with. Now, I'm a sucker for established married couples, see my love for husband, but what I love about them is the chemistry of the couple. the kind of interactions and habits that have cemented over the many years of dating, living together, and/or hopefully sleeping in the same bed. Nasa and Tsukasa certainly seem sweet and have some traits I think could have had potential, but the entire premise of I really think this girl is cute, so I'm gonna go ahead and marry her just so I can be with her is idiotic. Yes, Tsukasa saves Nasa from dying, although it really was his fault for running into the middle of the street, and yes, Tsukasa is quite cute, but there's absolutely no question of why here. Years later, when the two reunite, Nasa sort of asks her why she'd want to marry him after the fact, but she gives the unsatisfying vague answer of, well, I love you, of course.
私は好きでもない人と結婚したりしないわ。
You did it, guys. You did it. Wow, stunning and brave. Outstanding. Great job. I'm so proud of you. Well, I love you, of course, is not a valid fucking reason for marrying a guy you met once in your life. Are you fucking daft, you dumb cunt? Now, Tsukasa is definitely best girl material. She's caring, makes herself useful to a guy she barely knows, and doesn't have any ridiculous expectations for Nasa. I mean, look at him.
可愛すぎて心臓が止まりそうになった。
Doesn't really instill a lot of confidence. She doesn't complain about their living arrangements for the most part, although she needs that TV to watch all her favorite films. She is almost a realistic character. But she's really just a male fantasy, and I can't get over that. She's cute, submissive, and wants to take care of her new husband while having no negative traits, no real personality, and no identity other than being the new Mrs. Yusaki. She's there for Nasa to fawn over her. Let's sprinkle in some good old underage girl fantasy and she's an incel's dream. Actually, wait a moment. Tsukasa does have a personality. She's disingenuous and hides stuff from Nasa from the start. She never offers a satisfying explanation as to why he should marry her. It's only so they can be together. Swiggity swooty. I'm sure this is vital to the plot, and I'm hoping she's a Kaguya figure or an alien like just about every major visual or drop line seems to imply, but that's beside the point. Tsukasa is not telling Nasa what he's getting himself into, and that's an enormous breach of honesty and respect that should have no place in a married couple, especially one we're supposed to root for. Nasa is also the nice guy bait we've come to expect. He has some delusions of grandeur, suffers from strong virgin vibes that I'm pretty sure most virgins wouldn't have in real life, and he's apparently thick as a brick, albeit a well-intentioned one. He has the guts to go after what he wants, so kudos to him. And that's me being nice, because in reality Nasa is yet another incel's power fantasy. Sure, he's never interacted with a girl he had a smidge of interest or attraction in without blubbering like an idiot, but he's an everyday genius, and he's such a positive dude, and he has all this hidden potential. He's just waiting for his dream girl to finally show up, and then he'll do something about his life, and then he'll move mountains, that's the way. But behind this facade, he's really just an immature teenager, and there's a lot of people out there defending this character. Again, why? I really don't get how that's possible. How does anyone identify with a guy who freaks out at smelling a girl's hair?
それにいい匂いすぎて脳がチカチカする。
Bad touch!
This isn't exactly cute behavior if you ask me. It's closer to Ted Bundy stuff, but at least he somehow got fangirls. Don't ask me how, because it decreases my faith in humanity even more.
Ew, not a nice thought. I'm starting to get the heebie-jeebies.
But I feel that the worst part about Nasa is the fact that he seems to have no common sense. He might know how to eat a balanced meal or how to pay the rent, but apparently he doesn't seem to know how sketchy his whole relationship is. Some girl you barely knew when she said to marry her suddenly comes back and won't even talk about herself? I don't know about you, but I'd probably not actually go through with the marriage if all I knew about her is pretty girl.
Goodbye. Goodbye, rationality. Goodbye.
I'd be better off getting a bride online. He's just desperate.
Fellas, I am so horny.
And that could work as an obstacle that he needs to overcome, but the show never calls him out on this. When he has worries and grows the testes to talk about them, they're revealed to be no biggie. Or the show just accepts the fact that he's a loser and asks us to also accept that. Heh. No. The supporting characters are Tonikawa is not exactly a harem show, but for any romantic comedy, we just got to have a colorful supporting cast of characters. And each of them are painted in a nice shade of opaque couche. What color was that again? Oh, should have picked something people would get. So who do we got? There's Kaname, who is Nasa's junior and takes care of the Arisugawa public bathhouse. She's probably the best of the supporting cast, but that's not saying much here, is it? She calls him a degenerate in just about every scene she's in, which we take in and immediately forget when she's gone. There's Aya, Kaname's sister, who's an airhead. and likes Nasa but doesn't tell him about any of that because that would be an inconvenience. It's not as if he somehow saved your entire business from going under. Oh wait, he did! Oops! You'd think a few months later you'd tell someone that saved your ass you actually liked them, but I guess we don't operate on logic in these here parts. And of course we need an enemy for our two lovers, so that's where Chitose comes in. She's a tsundere type.
まったくお姿が見えなくなったと思ったらこんなみすぼらしいアパートにお住みとはこんな場所姉様にはふさわしくありません
Great! What's her role in all of this? Well, as Tsukasa's stepsister, she's there to meddle with her life as well as Nasa's because there's no way she can accept that a man with such a low income is going to be her brother-in-law. I mean, I can't really blame her because she's one of the few people to speak some goddamn sense. How can you possibly agree to marry someone you barely know? But wouldn't you know it, she has no personality whatsoever outside of that aspect. By the way, I read most of this information off of Wikipedia because that's as much of an impression as they leave on me. Also, there's only like 5 characters even though the show has introduced more than that. So who's left over? Chitose's maids? Yeah, they're maids. One's brain dead and the other is smart? Yeah, I don't know. And I guess there's Nasa's parents too. Of course, they've got the personality of a cardboard box and are perfectly accepting of the fact that their son married some girl he saw once a few years ago. As if that's something to be proud about. Unless these two were so worried about him being forever alone that they'd approve of any girl who could pump out a few units. This show can be very direct with how its characters act, so I guess I'll give it a point for that. The show is very straightforward. Yeah, and how bad it is. Next! The music is pretty good and fits well for the series. Sure, and Nazi officers drove Volkswagens in their Hugo Boss uniforms and drank Fanta orange soda as the Associated Press took their photos.
Damn!
In conclusion.
Okay, I may have been a little bit harsh. Well, no, I was. But I'm not trying to say this show is somehow the spawn of Satan disguised in designer clothing. But good music, decent animation, and some funny moments can't cover up the utter garbage smell that's emanating from this series. Seriously, if there's anyone out there who can give me a solid, compelling piece of evidence for why this show deserves anything higher than a 4, I'm all ears. Is there really anything worth watching here? Not really. Sure, it does have its funny moments, but you might as well watch clips on YouTube. And as bad as this show is, it's no trash fire like Domestic Girlfriend or School Days, both of which can actually provide some level of entertainment. Probably unintentionally, but it's something. And yet I feel kind of bad for not liking the show. Somehow, maybe. There seems to be something worth exploring here, but we're never really able to see much more than the promise of something unique. It's not serious enough to actually explore the issues and consequences of diving headfirst into marriage, and it doesn't really focus on the supernatural concepts being hinted at. It's very obvious that Tsukasa is supposed to be some immortal version of the folkloric character Princess Kaguya, what with the moon motif and invincibility, but so far I've yet to see that we're anywhere close to such a revelation. Just really brief and basic hints that come across as throwaway lines. Well, now that I've got this bad taste in my mouth, I ought to go and wash it all out with something more nutritional.
What are you doing, step bro?
Well, you can't spell nutrition without nyan.
This man. Go back to your stable.
Not deja vu.
Thank you and good night.